Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you want to shoot your compound bow better, or maybe you just got your first bow and you want to learn how to shoot it, this is the video for you. Everything that I'm about to show you is what I did step for step to become a better shooter in just a couple of weeks. We're going to start with the fundamentals because that's really the building blocks that we need. And then from there we can get into how to actually practice, what my practice process is. And in the very end, I'll show you guys some other resources you can use to improve your shooting besides just listening to me. But I know you guys clicked on this video because you probably want to shoot better, so let's dive right in. In the very beginning, you can just set your bow down because we're going to start from the feet and we're going to work our way up. So the very first thing you want to be thinking about is your feet, your foundation. What should you be doing with your feet? All right. If the target's in front of you, like the camera is here, you don't want to be too close to that target if I'm holding my bow. You don't want to be too open either. Okay, so what your feet should be doing, they should be about shoulder width apart. All right, right underneath your shoulders. One thing that I see a lot of new archers do is actually start with their feet out wide. Okay, and that's just going to put some unneeded tension and pressure in your abdominals and in your core, and you won't be able to stabilize the bow as well. Okay, so bring those feet in. You want the toe of your front foot to be in line with the ball of your rear foot. So what that kind of looks like, if the camera is the target here, is just like this. Okay, so you can see I'm not too open and I'm not too close with it. And when I do that, my feet are also right underneath my shoulders. And that's going to give you the right kind of balance that you need to make a good shot. From there, we can move up to our hips. Okay, we don't want our hips leaning in either direction. You'll see this a lot if someone's draw length is too long. So when they pull that bow back, they'll try to compensate a little bit by leaning back. And that's going to create imbalance, and it's going to be hard to be consistent with that. So you want to be nice and upright. If anything, you can try to compensate a little bit by starting off, by leaning forward. Then as you raise that bow up, come nice and straight and level. Now what should your shoulders and arms be doing? The easiest way to think about it is put your arms straight out like this. Bring the back arm in, and right about here, this is perfect form, okay? This front arm, this is one that took me a while to figure out, okay? But if it's hyperextended, if it's all the way out, it's going to be really hard to keep that bow steady, okay? You want to have a little bit of a bend in that elbow, all right? One, to kind of absorb any of the shock upon release so you're not torquing the bow too much. This is one thing that can happen also if your draw length is too long, okay? You're going to have that arm hyperextended too far, all right? You want a little bit of a bend. Now this rear arm, what you want to do is you want to make a triangle. So if we put our feet how they're supposed to be positioned, and I pull my bow straight back, all right? I don't want this rear shoulder, rear elbow too far behind me like it is right now. So if this is 12 o'clock or maybe even 1 o'clock, I want it more at an 11, okay? And you'll get that if you put those arms straight out and bring it in. You can see it's not behind my body right now. What that's going to allow us to do is as I release, I can pull that shoulder back behind my back, and that'll give us a more consistent release. Versus if I start off already back here, I have way too much motion in that release. You can see my front hand even moving a little bit, okay? So make sure it's kind of in that 11 o'clock position so you can actually pull through on your shot. Another thing to think about, as you're drawing back, if that elbow is too far this way, all right, that's going to be very hard for you as well. But you can fix a lot of that again with your stance. It's going to keep you from keeping that elbow too far out in front. Now we're on to the grip. How do you actually hold this thing, all right? This is probably the number one biggest difference in my shooting is how I grip the bow, okay? For a long time, I was just holding it like this, like you would think to hold a bow, right? But what you don't realize, what you're doing there is you're putting a whole lot of torque on this bow, especially as you release, okay? You can twist it any which way you want, and you have a lot of additional pressure here in your fingers and in your hand that you're putting onto this bow. That's going to send that arrow in different directions. So what you want to do, all right, you want to find the lifeline in your hand. So if you can see it right here, this is the lifeline. That's kind of your guidance for where you actually want to put this bow, okay? So you're going to place the grip of the bow right on that lifeline, and you want to keep it on the thumb side of that lifeline. So how that's going to look, you can see my hand here. That bow grip is going to sit right there. All right, you're going to slide your hand up to the top and wrap the fingers around. Now you don't want to wrap like that, even though it's on the lifeline. You want to minimize as much finger pressure as humanly possible on the bow. You want to utilize your bones as much as you can and not your muscle. So as you pull back on this bow, you won't even need to hold this thing, because just the force of you pulling back is going to keep that bow where it needs to be. So I'll give you a look here. So the first thing I'm doing, I'm taking my hand just like if I were to say stop. I'd take it just like that. I'm putting it on that bow grip, sliding it all the way up, curling my fingers around. Then from there, as you can see, as I raise the bow and pull back, I don't need to grip it with my fingers at all. Okay, I don't need to necessarily have them open. It's nice to kind of lean them on the front of that grip, just like so. But that's the whole point of that, is to try to minimize you grabbing that bow as you release. So when you get in your spot, pull through, and don't grip the bow as you're doing it, okay? If you're holding onto that bow, when you release the arrow, it's going to go any which way. Now, how you draw the bow can be equally as important, both for consistency and also safety. You'll see a lot of new guys take their bow, bring it way up here, and draw it like that as they bring it down. One reason that's not good is because you're not putting all of the things we talked about in the beginning into alignment, all right? Once you start up here and you pull back, your shoulders are in weird positions, your elbows in a weird position, your torso's in a weird position. You're just not starting out how you should. Second, it's not very safe, because if something happens while you're drawing this bow back, you're going to send an arrow 800 feet into the air, okay, which is what you don't want to do. So the best way to do this is to keep everything in line as you draw. So getting those feet set, finding your grip, thinking about my elbow position, everything I'm going to do once I raise the bow. And then once I bring that bow up and I draw it back, I'm just going to draw straight back. One of the reasons for that too is if you think about a hunting situation, okay? If you're bringing your bow way up and then down, that's a lot of movement. But if you can keep that bow in front of you as you draw, you're almost using that bow as concealment to whatever animal you're hunting. All right, so keeping that bow nice and in front of you as you draw is going to help not only your mechanics, but also you if you're on the stock. That's really the basics of these fundamentals, okay? That's where you should start. We could deep dive all of this stuff a hell of a lot more. We could get into the release, what you're looking for with that, but that's just a whole nother can of worms. So if you start with this stuff here, you're already going to be better off. And then once you master that, you can move into the nitty-gritty of all the little intricate things that you can do different with your mechanics. Now that you've learned all these fundamentals though, we can put it all together, and I can walk you guys through my shot process and how I practice on a daily basis. So every time I shoot, I talk myself through every single one of those fundamental steps. Sometimes I'll even say it out loud. So first things first, I put my release on. Then I'm checking my feet. Am I oriented how I should be, okay? Feet underneath my hips, underneath my shoulders. I'm not too open. I'm not too close. Everything's looking good there. Now I'm going to pull a little bit on this string to provide some pressure on my hand. I'm going to make sure that my hand is in the proper position, just like we talked about before. From there, I'm going to raise my bow up. I'm going to pull straight back till my bow stops. So right there. Once my bow stops, I'm going to bring it to my anchor point. I'm going to find and acquire my target as I put my nose on the string as a reference point. And then from here, I'm going to decide that I want to shoot. My thumb goes on the trigger and I execute. I'm obviously too close to this garage door, so don't do that. But again, I'll talk you through. Release, feet, grip, raise, pull to stop, anchor, nose, acquire target, decide, execute. It's as simple as that, all right? So I do that every time I shoot, whether I say it out loud, and in the off season, it's a great time to talk yourself through each one of those steps again. But even into the hunting season, I'm thinking about each one of those things as I go through and I execute that shot process. So that's how I shoot the bow. Now, where do I shoot the bow? How long do I shoot the bow? How many times do I shoot it? And that can depend, all right? In the off season, like it is right now, it's January, I'm just in my garage, all right? I'm shooting at 5 yards, and that's where you want to start. I don't care how experienced you are, okay? This is a great time to go back to those fundamentals. So shooting at 5 yards in the garage, I've been doing it for a couple weeks already, and I can already tell that I'm getting better at executing those steps, because as you go through the hunting season, if you're a hunter, all right, you don't shoot your bow as much, especially if you're gone for extended periods of time hunting, all right? You're not shooting like you are at home. So you can pick up some bad habits, and now is a good time to erase those and kind of reset. So how I go about resetting is I start nice and close. I shoot about 30 arrows a night if I can. So 10 rounds of 3. That's a good place to start. You can even put the poundage down on your bow. All right, so you can get those reps in. As you start building reps, you can start adding some poundage. You can start shooting more, add a 4th arrow in there, so you're shooting 40 a night, start building and working those muscles again. That's what you should be doing. Too many guys get their first bow or a new bow and just start launching arrows at 20, 30, maybe even further yardages, all right? But if you can't get these fundamentals down to start with, that's not going to be very beneficial to you, and it'll probably just make you even more frustrated. So bring it in nice and close. It doesn't have to be pretty, all right? My garage is in a great place to do this, and if your garage is cleaner than this, then we probably can't be friends, because your life is way more put together than mine is. But this could be done in a basement. This could be done in an apartment room, all right? But if you are going to be shooting inside, it's always a good idea to kind of sight in first in a safe place, so you know you're not going to miss your target, and also maybe put up a backstop. So if those arrows do miss the target, even at 5 yards, you know it's not going through some drywall. I think the best way to work through these fundamentals is to start with each one and spend a week to a couple of days on each one of those steps. So starting at the feet. And all I want you to think about in that process is that your feet are how they should be. Don't even worry about your grip. Don't worry about your shoulders. Don't worry about anything like that. Start with your feet. Start doing that for a couple days and then move on to the hips. From there, then you can move on to the shoulders and the arms and the elbow. Eventually, you'll work yourself up to that grip and actually pulling back the bow. And that's a month-long process right there just to get to that point, all right? But you want to make sure that you solidify each one of those fundamentals and motions into your process before you try putting it all together. Otherwise, you're going to be thinking about too much. So start from the ground up every week, and then get to the point where you can talk yourself through the entire process. And by that time, hopefully it's spring and you can step outside, you can start stepping back a little bit and really dialing in and doing your research to get better and better. Now, where should you go at this point to get some more help besides what I just taught you? There's lots of good resources out there. My number one resource for anything archery, bow hunting would be John Dudley with Knock on Archery. I went through his School of Knock season 1 this year, and that's where I'm getting a lot of these tips. Okay, so go and check that out. He's got a ton more information and more than I'll ever know about bows, okay, that he can instill on you guys, and a lot of it's free. So go check out School of Knock from John Dudley. The Podium Archer on YouTube also has a lot of good videos that can help you with your form. And if you get to the point where you're curious about your release and different types of release aids, you can go check out Shot IQ, and you can learn a ton about how to calm your nerves, how to execute the shot no matter what kind of pressure you have, and how to not punch that trigger and actually have a nice surprise release and pull through that shot. So that about wraps it up, guys. We talked about all those different fundamentals that you need to start out with. We talked about my shot process, how I practice on a daily basis, and I gave you guys a couple different resources that you can go and check out to get better every single day. Thanks for watching.